It's easy to hear your favorite artist on WFPK from wherever you are. Listen on your smart speaker, live stream from our website at WFPK.org from Louisville Public Media.
I don't think you want to see this. I'm actually doing you a favor.
Consequence Podcast Network. Hey, and welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith With. It's the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org. Consequence and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thanks as always for making your way here and checking out the series. Of course, you know what to do. If you like what you see, what you hear, hit that subscribe button. Put out 3 new interviews every single week, so it's a great way to keep up with your favorite artists and discover the new ones at Spotify and Apple Podcast, at NPR, WFPK.org, YouTube for the video versions, or anywhere you get your podcast from. Subscribe to Kyle Meredith With. Recent episodes have included my conversations with Kara Jackson, the band Daughter. Talked about the movie Extraction 2 with Golshifteh Farahani and producer Sam Hargrave. I've also had country star Carly Pearce on here. Josh Homme of Queens of the Stone Age. John Roberts, the voice of Linda Belcher on Bob's Burgers. We had Dave Davies of the Kinks, Stone Gossett of Pearl Jam, and the band Inhaler. That's just a few of the recent episodes here on the Kyle Meredith With podcast. That's me, Kyle Meredith. Today, my guest, Este Haim. We're going to be talking about soundtracking the new Hulu and Disney Plus series called A Small Light. In fact, she's the executive music producer. So we're going to get into her work as TV and film composer on projects like Maid and Cha-Cha Real Smooth and White Lotus, which she scored the second season for, and even says she plans on being a part of future seasons, really in any way she can, even if they don't hire her. And we'll be talking about what makes A Small Light such a special series. Now, this is the series that tells the story of Anne Frank, but from the perspective of Miep Gies. Now, Este goes on to talk about bringing on Sharon Van Etten, Phoebe Bridgers, Angel Olsen, Kamasi Washington, among others, to cover songs from the 40s as part of the soundtrack to A Small Light, and actually her own sister, Danielle Haim, to cover the song Till We Meet Again that airs in the pilot episode. Este also lets us know, in fact, that Haim are back to work on writing their next album, and we'll have a song on the upcoming Barbie soundtrack, as well as the preparation and expectations for their upcoming opening slots on the Taylor Swift Eras Tour. All that and more, we're talking about A Small Light. It's Kyle Meredith with Este Haim.
Oh, what an amazing Prince poster.
It's actually the calendar from 2020 when I left my office, and I just kind of left the calendar up. That's it's my relic.
What a good one.
Yeah, no, that is the thing. It's like, I mean, I could put up any other thing on this calendar, but one, it's kind of fun because that's when I finally did leave the office that year and just started working from home. But two, it's fucking Prince. So
is that March 2020?
No, that was June. I was able to stay around here a little bit longer because no one else was here. And
okay.
Yeah. So it was but at that point, by the time June finally came around, I was like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm just gonna stay at home. Like, you know, because I think because some of us waited it out a little bit, like what's going on, you know?
I know that. I mean, it was such a confusing time. I mean, to be honest, June 2020 was when we released Women in Music Part 3. So I think that was also the time where everyone was like, okay, we're in it for the long haul. We thought this might be over by April. Not happening.
Not so much.
I know, like, what a crazy time.
Oh, man. Good morning.
Good morning. Top of the morning to you.
It's good to have you on here. I know we've done these phoners a few times over the years, and God, I was actually thinking the first time we ever did an interview was it when you guys played Bonner the first time. So it's actually been a little bit of time 14. Here and there. Yeah.
Coming up on 10 years.
Look at that.
Wow.
And we both look exactly the same as we did 10 years ago.
Actually, I think we look better.
It's probably true. It's probably true.
I've only been getting better with age. That's the story that I'm sticking
to. That's a good story. Like, why would you stick with the other story? Like, fuck.
Yeah, that would be depressing. Jesus. No, I'm just getting better. And I'm just getting started.
You know, that seems like a good point to get into this real interview here, because I feel like that's partly true. So I'm just going to roll right into this because one of the things we're talking about today is you are the executive music producer on the soundtrack to A Small Lights, which is now out on Hulu and Disney Plus. And this is like, I mean, you've carved out really a career for yourself because this comes on the hill. Let's see. Stop me if I'm missing anything, but you scored Maid, Cha Cha Real Smooth. You're part of the Do Revenge music. You're So Not Invited to My Bar Mitzvah. You're the music consultant for White Lotus. I mean, this is really like your other career. Maybe it's your first career and Haim's your second career. What's going on?
No, Haim will always be my first career. Danielle and Alana would literally smother me in my sleep if I didn't say that, first of all. Secondly, no, I think that, I think this, being able to be a composer, I think it goes hand in hand with being a touring musician and an artist. I think that, like, I don't think it's like that big of a stretch. I think that a lot of musicians naively go into this thinking that it's gonna be easy. Like, I'm a musician, I write music, I can do it for film. That's the part that I think is a misconception. But I think that, being a composer is so much fucking fun. It's your job to service this magical thing that's on screen. And I feel lucky in a lot of respects, but mostly lucky that people trust me with their babies, like their films, and they trust me with it and trust that I'm going to, service what's going on screen, but also to be additive. You know what I mean?
Like, I'm a soundtrack collector. I don't want to use a term like I'm a soundtrack nut or something like that, but just in the sense that, like, there's always been something about that, right? The meeting of music and movies. And I think a lot of people probably feel that way, but they don't go far enough down the rabbit hole to understand why. But there is that part of the magic, like, as you're saying, to be part of that magic. It seems like the cherry on top, if you could pull it off, of a successful career.
Yes, agreed. I mean, I think the times that I've cried the most have been really, really pivotal moments in movies because of the music, though. Not just like there's this dramatic thing happening on screen, but it's not that usually the thing that tugs at my heartstrings. It's the music that's happening while the scene is, going on. So to be a part of that too, and to be able to, not in in a weird way, I guess composers are sort of manipulative because but it's not our job to tell people how to feel. So it's you have to find the right balance of, like, I still want to be emotional, or I still want to be comical, or I still want to be, dramatic, but I don't want to knock people over the head with it. So that's been my learning curve, because it's not like people go to school for composing for years, and that's not lost on me. And speaking of being additive, I want to add to the art form. I don't want to take anything away from it at all. If I'm going to do this, I want to, do the art form justice, and that's not lost on me, and I don't take that lightly. So yeah, I want to do a good job.
And we'll be right back right after this. Welcome back. It's Kyle Meredith with Este Haim. I don't remember exactly how old you are. I know we're close to the same age somehow, but or one way or the other, however the math works out. But because I'm 41, like, we grew up in the era of John Williams when we talk about, music and movies. Like that's the bar. Like, that's where it starts or ends, or however you look at that. But like, when you get into this, obviously on one side of things, you are coming from, pop songwriting, and I use pop in a very, very broadest term. Like, what was that transition like for you? What was that learning curve for you?
I went into, the first thing that I ever composed, like wrote music for screen for, was Maid, like you mentioned. And that was also like, I had like my initial conversations about that project in June of 2020. And such a pivotal time for both of us. I have a friend who's a producer, and we'd been talking before the pandemic about this TV show called Messy. It wasn't called Messy in America. It was called something else in America, but it was a TV show for Netflix that I was an uncredited music consultant for, that I just helped my friend kind of figure out how to tell the composer like the kind of music that he wanted for the show. And I was kind of like a composer whisperer for my friend. And I was telling my friend Brett Hedblum, who was the producer on Maid, kind of what I did. And Brett was like, hey, can you do that for this TV show that I just did called Maid? I'll send you the pilot. Let me know what you think. Sends it to me. I give him notes. And then literally like within the hour of me giving the notes, he goes, what if you just did the music? And I was like, I mean, I've never done it before, Brettles. Like, yeah, but like I hope we're clear. Like, I've never composed for TV and film before. And he was like, you'll figure it out. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I will figure it out. You're so right. And I met Christopher Stracy through Tobias Jessup Jr. I kind of set up the bat signal because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do this by myself. And Toby was basically like, oh, I have the guy for you. His name's Christopher Stracy. You guys are going to get on like a house on fire. And we did. We had like our first play date with Tobias, like literally like the dad, like overseeing to make sure everything was okay. And we demoed the music for the pilot that day, turned it in, and then we got the job. So my transition was basically blind faith. I just, I have this saying, people that say yes have adventures, people that say no play it safe, and people that say maybe spend their whole life saying maybe. Think of Hamlet, to be or not to be. So like, I tend to say yes, even when I don't necessarily know how I'm going to do it. But I just do it.
That's the way. But you're right. I mean, if you're going to have a career, that's the way.
Yeah, I think so. And it was the same thing with like White Lotus. Like my friend was like, do you want to come to Sicily for a couple weeks and help with music, basically? And I was like, yeah. I mean, it's a way more lengthy story, but that's basically what happened. And I said yes. And then I got to spend, a bunch of time in Italy on set.
Are you still a part of that? Like, do you move on to part 3? Are you helping out there?
I mean, I will definitely be going to I don't know. I mean, I was talking to Dave about it, and I was like, and you understand now that like every season from now on, I will be coming to visit. Like there's no two ways around that.
Sure. No, you've got the credentials now. That's the fob needs to still work wherever, whenever.
Sure, I've got some kind of like White Lotus badge, I'm sure.
So this all runs into A Small Lights, which isn't just a project. This seems like more than just, and no disrespect to any of the ones that you've been part of in the past, but this, on top of it just being, with a great company, and it's going to be seen by a lot of people, this heavy subject matter on top of this is another telling of the Anne Frank story and everything that goes along with it. Where did this one come on? Where did this one come from? How did you sign on? And I guess, what does it mean to be a part of it?
Well, I actually came onto the project a little later than I probably normally would have. I got a call from the producers, and basically the second they told me that it was about Miep Gies, I was like, oh, I'm in. I grew up kind of being obsessed with Anne Frank. In a weird way, when I was a kid, I thought I was Anne Frank, because in the book she talks about kind of her window to the outside world were these church bells. And the house I grew up in was next to a church. So I would hear the church bells. And then like as a totally like psychotic 8-year-old, I'd be like, oh my God. And Frank and I like, oh my God, she hears church bells. I hear church bells. Like we have so much in common. Like, okay.
That's all it takes when you're that young.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly. I mean, I had a very, very vivid imagination. And so I'd read the book multiple times, and I knew how integral Miep was to the story. And talk about her window to the outside world. Miep was also her window to the outside world. And, you know, I loved the idea that the way into the story of Anne Frank was through Miep's eyes. And on top of everything, I think it's such an important story to tell. So I jumped at the chance to work on the project. And essentially the brief was, and this is also the reason I wanted to do it, is because the brief was basically, we're going to take classic songs, classic pop songs really, from the 30s and the 40s, or around that era. And we're going to get modern artists to cover them. And that was it. And the producers were like, and you can have carte blanche, you can do them however you want. They were very, again, trusting with me, which I very much appreciated. So yeah, and then it was kind of off to the races. I'm really, really lucky that everyone I asked to participate said yes. So that made my job that much easier. And I kind of put together this team of producers to also help me execute these songs, because we didn't have that much time. So a lot of the artists were making these songs at the same time. So I had the help of Zach Dawes, who has worked with Sharon Van Etten and Angel Olsen, and also Lana Del Rey. And then Ethan Griska, who's also worked with King Princess and Remy Wolf, and also Phoebe Bridgers, and then Rostam Batmanglish, who my sisters and I have worked with on our last 2 records.
Love Rostam.
Love Rostam. He's the best. And yeah, so I decided that I didn't want to, the example I've been giving is like, I didn't want to do like a 4 on the floor disco version of like Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy. Like
Right.
I wasn't trying to like, you know, I don't know. That was just not my MO. I wanted to keep it really classic, but with modern instruments and with a modern, you know, spin still, but just really beautiful vocal performances, and having these artist vocals be the thing that really shines. And again, I also chose artists that I knew could handle the material, because the material is also not easy. And everyone that signed on to do the project has these incredible vocals, and are so incredibly, their voices are also incredibly I would say unique. I mean, you listen to like artists like Weyes Blood, you listen to Natalie, you listen to that version, and it's heartbreaking. Like her voice is just out of this world.
And we'll be right back right after this. Welcome back. It's Kyle Meredith with Este Haim. Kind of doubling down on what you're saying, like there is a consistent mood with all of them. And that's, I don't know if it's surprising, but it's definitely noticeable as an album, you know, to say it in that way. Like, you know, just hearing, you know, you have to know this music. And I don't know your back. I know you grew up with these songs too. Like I lived with my great grandma for a while. I knew my great grandma for a little while. Like, you know, they were young adults when this music, you know, so it was just all around. And to hear how you kind of put your own spin, I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but the mood on it is so beautiful. I mean, you're talking about the vocal performances, and you're correct, but even musically speaking, and just how this album works together. Like, I just love the sound of it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I looked at it also like an album. I mean, that's probably the artist in me coming out, but also being cognizant of the mood of every the end of every episode, and also trying, again, not to hit people over the head with like either like this is sad, this is dramatic,
Right.
but also like because there are elements of comedy in this show as well, which I also appreciated, you know. And there've been so many different iterations of this story on screen, and I appreciated the fact that the producers, you know, did have a bit of levity, even though it's a terrible, heartbreaking story. But like there were moments of comedy, and there were, you know, tacit comedy, and I also wanted to have a little bit of that within the like the Kamasi Washington song, like, you know, Charlie Parker and Bebop, and you know, it was as much as it was a really, really intense, dire, scary time. So much amazing, lively music came out of it.
When I saw that you had that Sharon was doing I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire, I thought, oh wait, are they going to do the spoken word on this? Because whoever lands that, and Michael Imperioli,
I mean,
that was one of
yeah.
my. I mean, when we look back, especially at that decade, at that era, at that genre, you know, like that was when you got to the bridge, you did the speaky part, and it's one of the funniest parts of pop music I think that, you know, ever existed. And I don't know why I find it so funny, but it's still so funny to me. I'm so happy that you incorporated that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I had just come off of I had just gone to like the White Lotus premiere, and I was lucky enough to become friendly with Michael. And right when I heard that part, I was like, oh, like that's a no-brainer. Like the biggest no-brainer ever. And actually, I love spoken word parts. It's like I'm a huge, huge Boys to Men fan.
Right. They carried the tradition. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, I love it. I love it.
Baby.
I love
Everything
it.
had to start, of course, baby.
Baby.
You know.
Oh yeah, I love it.
So, you know, you've got the guest list, sure, but and these songs, were there specific reasons why you chose these specific songs?
Well, the way that I went about it with the artists was I was kind of going back and forth with them on song choice. I didn't want to necessarily be like I don't know, I'm really into collaborating. I like being able to, I mean, I do it in Haim all the time. So that's really what I'm used to. So what I was doing was kind of sending songs back and forth with the artist and being like, well, what do you think about this one? Like, we could do this artist, we could do that. What do you think about this song? Like, and that really also just came from me going back into my arsenal of knowledge when it came to these songs, and like rediscovering songs, and you know, going down the rabbit hole of for different artists, and so it was a really collaborative process. The only song that I was having trouble with was the pilot song. That song was written in like 1912. It was actually written for World War One, not World War Two. But it was technically still period, and it like most songs from that era, it had been covered in like the 30s and the 40s, but it was written in 1912 or 1913. And when I found that one, and again, I wasn't looking for it necessarily, I found the cover of it, and then I heard the original. I was like, oh yeah, this is the one. And yeah, Tell Me Meet Again was I was like, this has to be the song for the opening.
And it is. It's beautiful, and it all works so beautifully.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of that one as well. And the fact that my sister is the one singing it is also special for me.
Which, you know, might lead into the other parts. What's next for Haim? Because again, 2020. So Winter Music Part 3. I know you're out there touring right now. I mean, have you all been working on anything?
Yeah. I mean, we're always writing, and we're always, you know, trying to stay creative. We have a song coming out on the Barbie soundtrack. And I believe that's coming out in a couple weeks. And then we go on tour with Taylor Swift, which is going to be so much fun. And then we have 2 shows at the Bellwether in July. And then, the rest of the year is hopefully going to be dedicated to, making new music.
But in the meantime, so you got that tour, as you said, and my wife just caught the one down in Nashville. That was one of the huge rainstorms that Phoebe was
Oh
on.
yeah, I mean that looked crazy. I mean she fucking killed it though.
What's the prep like? I mean, it's an opening gig on one side of things, sure, but is it different because it's fucking Taylor?
Honestly, I'm just looking forward to seeing the show every night. I'm gonna play my ass off, and then go to craft services, make a PB&J, and watch the show. That's what I mean. We had the best time when we opened for her on the 1989 tour, and we jumped at the chance when she asked us if we wanted to do the Eras tour. We jumped at it, and she's so much fun. She's literally just the best, just such a fun human being who's always up for it and like works harder than anyone I know, but also just like loves to have fun.
Yeah, I mean, of course I've just loved watching what she's done musically over the past few years, and your all's collaborations, especially on that last album. Which one was it, Folklore or Evermore, that you guys were on?
Evermore.
Yeah, that was it. And that,
the song Where I Get Murdered.
Sure, right, exactly. Because if you're going to be in a Taylor song, you're going to get murdered.
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
I don't know the basis of your friendship, but I do love that that's part of it.
Well, I think we just both are obsessed with true crime, and so when she asked me if it was okay for me to be murdered in song, honestly, my answer was, I will be so angry if you don't murder me in a song.
One of the great honors to be murdered in someone's song.
Yeah. Oh my god. Oh my god. That was my highlight of that year, honestly.
Well, I look forward to all the photos of your all's nights on the town that always seem to erupt over the internet when that happens. That's the vicarious living we all do for your all's
I love it.
adventures. Let's see here, and I'm just trying to hit all the points while I've got you here. Licorice Pizza. Also, do you plan on doing more acting? Because now with the scoring and music producing as being such a big part of it, do you look for the acting gigs as well? Do you care about that part?
I would love to keep acting if the right part came along, for sure. I mean, I love acting and I love being on set. And that experience was so beautiful, to be able to be in a movie with my sisters and my parents and with Paul. I mean, it was almost overwhelming. But yeah, I think if the right thing came along and someone wanted to put me in something, yeah, again, you got to say yes.
Yeah. What do you think the right thing looks like? What does that mean in this context?
That's the problem. It's like my first experience in a movie was with Paul Thomas Anderson. So like right. I've sort of shot myself in the foot.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, if Paul, I say this to Paul all the time. I'm like, whenever I'm here.
Right.
The right thing, I think it would have to be a really interesting script and something that, I don't know, speaks to me in some way. And I think when I read it, I'll know.
Well, it'd be interesting to see. Of course, the saying yes part, as you said, is the biggest jump of it. And I don't know. I'm following your career anyway, so I would love to see it.
Oh man. I mean, your mouth to God's ears. I would love it too. I think that, again, people that say yes have adventures. And I think that that's what this journey is about, right? Just having as many experiences as you possibly can while we are able to do so.
And I'll quickly, very shortly brag. My son, in that context right there, starts an internship today on his very first movie set.
Amazing.
And, yeah. And it was me saying, there's an opportunity. You should, do you want to do this? And like, yes, of course. Yes, of course.
Oh my God.
But he's very excited about that too. So yeah.
Shit, I would do that. Intern on a movie set. That sounds like so much fun. Dream.
It's a dream, and he's only 15. He's almost 16. He's not. It's still in high school. So God. Yeah.
What a sweet baby. That's so sweet. Oh, he's gonna have the best time.
I think so. I'm so excited for him. And I'm excited for you all, and I really mean that. I'm not just trying to use that as a seg. But I do love what you've done with The Small Light and all the music that you've made so far on this side of it. I selfishly cannot wait for another Haim album.
Oh man, I'm gonna tell my sisters you said that. They're gonna be very happy you said that. I can't wait for the next album too. I'm like, let's fucking go.
Let's do it. Right on. Este, thank you so much for taking the time. It's always fun to catch up.
Yeah, and I'll see you on the road, hopefully.
And my thanks to Este Haim. The soundtrack for A Small Light is out now. Thanks to you for checking out the episode. Please do hit that subscribe button before you get out of here. Again, you do that, I'll give you 3 brand new interviews every single week. A new one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to keep you up to date on your favorite artists, and discover the new ones at iTunes and Apple Podcast, at Spotify and Podchaser, NPR, WFPK.org, YouTube for the video versions, or anywhere you get your podcast from. Subscribe to Kyle Meredith with. After that, head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show Monday through Friday, starting at 6 p.m. Eastern. It's song premieres. We have lots of old favorites. Of course, lots of music news and bonus interviews. In fact, a recent episode included the music of Sonic Youth and Polaris, David Bowie, PJ Harvey, Crowded House, Nico Case, The Pixies, Arlo Parks, Ziggy Marley, Erykah Badu, Lady Blackbird, Girl House, My Morning Jacket, Radiohead, Genesis Owusu, and my interview with AC Newman of the New Pornographers. It's just a recent episode that you hear 6 p.m. every weekday at WFPK.org. Consequence has your music and film news. Of course, you can also catch me on the social media spots, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. All 3 of them, the address is at Kyle Meredith. So I do hope you like and follow along. That does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time. Consequence Podcast Network.
Very stoked about that.
It's easy to hear your favorite artist on WFPK from wherever you are. Listen on your smart speaker, live stream from our website at WFPK.org, from Louisville Public Media.